Let's go. Angelo.
Yes, George.
Thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate it.
Look, it's a pleasure. We go back a long time.
We do.
We go far back. And I think, I don't know if you were around. I might be a bit older than you, but I was 16 when I started this. And no, you were not, because I met Jerry a little longer later after that. But hey, politics has always been good to me. Always giving me the opportunity to meet a lot of people. And the beauty of it is that I've always liked to, in all of that journey, is to make friends, to make good alliances.
I've said that on so many other podcasts. One of the things that I've taken away from my journey in politics, it's the relationships. In fact, that's what motivated this whole podcast to begin. I didn't want to lose those relationships. I felt like I was going to miss these people, right?
Yeah.
So it's amazing. It's amazing what your involvement and the engagement can do. But you weren't always involved in Laval. I think you were mostly, you started at a young age in Montreal.
Yeah, so I started in Montreal with the Young Liberals of Canada, with Denis Coderre, who was the president of the Young Liberals, and I started getting involved and with the Federal Liberal Party at the time, and it was in my riding of Papineau. So I started under the MP of André Ouellette, Claude Lachance before him. After Ouellette, it was Périgord, and after Périgord, it was
well, they lost the riding, right? It was
we had lost the riding to the bloc. Yes, exactly. So I had a quite a very interesting journey in being most of the time with ministers, and who were very active in the riding too. And I oriented my whole education, my life to doing that kind of a job one day, because it all started by a field trip going to Ottawa.
Did you know from a young age that this is what I want to be doing one day? This is where I want to...
I think my calling came at the age of around 16 when I did a field trip to Ottawa, and in visiting a parliament and in seeing what was going on inside. I felt so intrigued by seeing all those mostly men at the time debating and challenging each other and getting up and making comments. And I was so intrigued with that, and went back to school after that. And at the time, I have to say, we didn't have the internet, so I went and asked the librarian, how do I go about getting information on what happens in the House of Commons? And she geared me towards the books, and I started reading up on that, and it fascinated me. For me, it was like, wow, And so I had to make decisions on how I was going to get to that position, because it's not that you go to school and you become a politician. It's what you do in your life.
It's about experiences exactly.
That leads you to that. And so I said, okay, law had always been an interest to me. So I said, okay, I'll go into law school, learn how to debate, learn how to understand laws, how to make laws, how to explain them, etc. And that's what I did. Geared my studies into law, practiced a bit, but it was also the other aspect. It was not just an education, but it was also about environment, and also about implication, and always being tuned in with that goal to staying out of trouble, doing the right things, no skeletons in your closet, trying to always be ready to help. And I have to say, I have no regrets. If I'd have to do it again, I would. Maybe one difference, I would have maybe tried to run a little bit earlier. I took the plunge when I was in 10 years ago. I would have maybe done it 15 years ago.
Okay.
But I guess, like somebody told me, going into politics, it's all a question about timing.
It is timing, yes.
That's the right time, the right place, and the right location.
And you came in with the right timing in 2015, but you had ran also in 2011. That wasn't the right timing. There was an orange wave at that point that wiped the Liberals off the map in Quebec. You didn't get the result that you wanted, but you came back in 2015 and you won it. And this has been basically your first mandate. Tell me how it's felt. Finally, your dream has come true in 2015. How do you wrap your head around all of that?
I feel very completed, very very happy that I've finally attained my dream, and very fulfilled in a sense, and satisfied, because I was able to do exactly what I wanted to do, is to make a difference in my community, to make a difference for my people, for the businesses, for the cultural clubs, for the associations, for the old age people, etc. Being present. I always said that if ever I would be a politician, for me it was important to be present,
Oh, it's
to be
the
on
most
the ground.
important thing, yeah.
And I've achieved that on all the grounds, to being present, to being there for the people, to listen to the people, and to try to help them. And it's all about groundwork. I started in 2009 in Laval when the government was a minority government, and there was always the risk of an election coming up.
Yeah.
So I was getting ready as a 2009 for a 2010 election, and it didn't happen, and it went to 2011. Indeed, the loss was painful, but it was a big education for me, because it taught me to be able to accept defeat and to improve, and that's exactly what I did.
But it also gave you a good head start, right? I mean, you came back in 2015 with the experience that you had accumulated in 2011. You were no longer like a campaigning rookie. Of course, you've campaigned even from before when you were a kid, so you knew exactly what you had to do, and it all worked out in the end.
Yes, because the previous election gave me all the opportunity to meet people, to know the area very well, to get acquainted with the infrastructures in my riding, to get acquainted also with what were the needs, to hear the people's needs, to hear the people's satisfactions. And I think that was crucial, that election, and the following 4 years being involved as much as possible, and still connecting with the people was a plus, because when I came back in 2015, for me it was just a continuation.
Yeah.
But this time being a lot more prepared, knowing where to concentrate my energy, and I've been successful, I have to admit, because I've had a very good family support. My wife has supported what I've done. My sisters have been a big help. I have one sister that takes care of all my volunteers.
It's like a typical, typical Italian family.
Well,
it becomes a family affair.
It becomes a family affair. It is
People
a
stop
family
what
affair.
they're doing.
Yes,
You wake up in the morning. Let's go to the electoral committee.
That's exactly it. We come in for 9 and we leave by midnight, and it's work, and by 10 o'clock we just sit around and chat and recap what we've done and how we can do better. It's always about doing better. It's always about getting more volunteers, getting more votes, getting more visibility, getting more attention from our population. It's all about presence. And I have to say, like I said, family, my wife accepting all this, and me always being on the ground, ready to take that drive. I have some volunteers, as you can see, that are doing door to door. And that gentleman, Lelio, has been with me since 2009. You see, that's what I mean. I didn't disappear after the 2011 election. I kept in touch with my volunteers, had an annual volunteer get-together. And, that's the important. Politics, you got to deal with people, and you got to take care of the people.
Yeah.
And I did that with my volunteers, and I think today I feel so satisfied, so comfortable, so happy, because I was able to keep that alive. I was able to keep the volunteers engaged with me, and I was also able to engage that commitment with my constituents. And this is why today I feel very content with the results. And obviously my first 4 years in government, there was a big learning curve. I have to say my first year was a real big learning curve. Even though I was very politically involved, it didn't mean I understood what the MPs were always doing, because I was not always
you have to
with
get
them.
acquainted with the workings in government, the different committees, how it works.
Exactly.
Also the schedule, right? Because people don't realize, they see you now during a campaign, you're on the ground, you're knocking on doors, people get to talk to you, but you get elected, you're not here. You're traveling back and forth, and I mean, it's an enormous sacrifice for the family, for the children. How do you deal with all of that?
I have to say that that's one thing I didn't really realize when I was volunteering for other MPs, is the time factor. It's not a 9 to 5. It's not just a 4-day job. It's a 7-day job. It's a full-time. It's a lifetime job.
It's a full-time engagement.
It's a full-time engagement. So I'm very lucky that the distance between Montreal, Laval, and Ottawa is very close.
Yeah.
So it's a 2-hour drive if ever I want to be back for the family, etc. But it's really a Monday to Friday job. It happens occasionally that sometimes you get to leave on the Thursday night. You're not sitting on Fridays. But as of September, we have to, when the house is sitting, your presence is obligatory, and that goes up to December, and then it starts again in January up to June. So really, it's a big commitment. It's a big sacrifice for the family, and I have to say I'm very lucky too that with Skype I can have breakfast every morning with my son.
That's fine.
And I think that has helped, and also with my wife too has helped to keep a rhythm of life, family life, that I'm present, taking his bath at night too. I would be going through the Skype. Even when he lost his first tooth, the fairy godmother had to come. So what I did is I just left Ottawa that first time he lost his tooth and was present with him in the morning. So it's to having that mix between politics and family. It's to
balancing.
You have to balance. Yes, very important.
Let's talk about the riding. Obviously, you know it very well. You've been working the ground since 2009. You've spoken obviously to a lot of people. What are the things that people here are mostly preoccupied by? What were the challenges for you coming in as a new MP?
I have to say, one of them was the presence. They weren't too keen with the past MPs. They were not too present.
Okay.
They hardly would see them. So that's one of the issues, that I had to be very present. Other issues that have been of interest to them was the economy, jobs, the environment, infrastructure. I have to say, it's similar to many other ridings. The interests are very diverse, but it all boils down to those major issues. I hear that our constituents want to see their MP. And the biggest challenge we have as members of parliament is that the thinking is that we're always in Ottawa, and therefore we're never in the riding. And that has been the challenge, is to reverse that thinking, because when they don't see you, they automatically think you're in Ottawa. So I've had to try to increase my presence in the riding to prove them wrong, because the myth is that we're never around because we're always in Ottawa.
Yeah, you come around every 4 years.
You come around every 4 years during election time, So I have to say that not once did I hear, and when I hear it today, I can number the times that many people say, "I've never seen you in the last 4 years." Well, it's obviously those people don't go out, don't attend any activities, don't do anything. With the amount of fête de quartier that I attend, with the amount of all the activities I attend in the riding, I do café rencontres every Saturday or Sunday mornings. I do the café rencontres sometimes on a Thursday or on a Friday morning when I'm in the riding. So I'm constantly reaching out to my population to come to see me, to contact me, to come and have a coffee and discuss what are their issues, what are their preoccupations. So I've really extended myself to being present, and I've succeeded in that. That's been like, now I get all of the comments, all of the complaints for all the other levels of government, because they say you're always the one that we see. You're always around, so we tell you and we think you can help. So there's that challenge too of people don't understand the 3 levels of government. People don't grasp.
I know.
What does a federal MP do? What does a provincial MNA does? What does a city councillor do? They mix everything up. The most common question as the winter comes by, it's snow removal. As the snow is finished, now it becomes the potholes, the garbage. So there's a lot of confusion when it comes to that, and it's always trying to explain to people that it's not part of my jurisdiction. But I always try to do that extra effort to contacting my counterparts, be it at the provincial or at the municipal level, to let them know that so-and-so is having some challenges or some preoccupation with some issues, and to try to always give that service. Our job is about giving service. Exactly. And we can never just let go and say, I can't help you, it's not my jurisdiction. We try to orient them into the right direction and what steps to take or who to contact. Always try to leave our constituents with a positive thinking approach, and not just make them feel like they've just been let down. So
you were very much affected with the new NAFTA trade agreement? Because in your sector, you have some steel and aluminum manufacturing companies. Did you reach out to these people? Were they concerned at all with what was going on? Of course, now it hasn't yet been ratified, right, in the U.S. So what's the sentiment around all that? Where do people stand on that?
Well, the illegal tariffs imposed on Canada were a true challenge for certain businesses in my writing. And the government south of the border has been one of the most unpredictable ones. And so we've had to adjust to that. And what we did once these illegal tariffs were imposed is we quickly contacted the major companies that were affected by it. And companies that, I have to say, were never contacted by an MP's office. And for them, it was a blessing. They couldn't believe that I was reaching out to them in trying to help them and trying to guide them and in giving them the tools for them to apply in order to get this compensation. And you know, like I say, for every bad, there's a good. And this has given me the instinct to take initiatives when it comes to bad situations that are being imposed because of our partners, to go forward towards the companies that are affected, because sometimes they don't know where to go, what to do. And that has been another challenge. A lot of people, businesses, organizations, constituents, sometimes do not know what to do, how to get help, where to get help. So when you reach out to them before they're freaking out of what to do, it makes a big difference. It changes the whole dynamics. Even if we can't do much, but the fact that we outreach towards them makes the difference because we were proactive. Being proactive never goes wrong.
But here's the deal with this new NAFTA. First of all, like I said, it hasn't been ratified. With the impeachment hearings that are starting in the U.S., chances are that it might even get delayed. So there's a huge question mark. And in that agreement, I think that the U.S., the United States, has reserved the right to impose tariffs on steel and aluminum if ever they notice that the import volumes increase past whatever normal rates usually imports into the U.S. Are your businessmen here, are these factors that you have here still concerned about that? I mean, are they aware of the possibility that they may fall back into that loop?
Well, yes, they're always concerned. And as I mentioned before, the American administration has been very extremely unpredictable. And look, with the old NAFTA, what did the American administration do? They just did what they had to do. So who knows what they can do with the new NAFTA? We're to some extent at the mercy of what our partners can do, and we have to just be ready and stand up for our businesses, and that's exactly what we did. I think the important thing to remember here is that we should never just put down our arms, but always be ready to stand up and to say, look, this is not right. We're going to take action. We're going to take the right measures, and it's always that collaborative approach with our American partners. We can't bully them. We can't go after them. We know that very well. By fighting is not gonna find the solution. Is not going to be there. So we gotta negotiate. We gotta collaborate with them. It's a give and take, and I think our plan, our method has brought lots of progress, and as we can see with the compensation, with the new NAFTA, etc., a lot of businesses found relief, and I think that's the priority. And what we also do is we contact them. We want to get their feedback on what they think we should be doing. This is what that measure of being proactive led us to get the information of what these steel companies wanted us to do. How did they see it? How were they affected? And what could we undo in order for them to be less affected? What can we give them in order to have that bit of relief? So we reached out to them to get their ideas, to get their solutions. Because in the end, we as politicians, we have to try to absorb what's happening around us, but we have to also try to find a solution. And that solution sometimes does not always come from us, but it comes from
the ground.
The ground,
yeah.
Exactly.
Let's talk a little bit about your platform. You're very present on the ground. What is it in the platform that seems to be resonating the most with your citizens?
The environment. The environment is becoming more and more of a popular matter, as we can see since the debate last week. I have to to say the environment, even with the old age people, I've visited about 4 old age clubs, and the environment is important. What environment, what society are we leaving their kids has become a big preoccupation.
Yeah.
And I think the population is not aware or does not quite understand what's happening, what's being done, what actions our government has taken. And we're trying to explain to them, we're trying to inform them that as a government, we in the last 4 years have taken much more action than any other government has ever done in the last 35 years. So, and explaining to them, look, we've invested in green infrastructures. We've invested in 100% electricity, electrical buses, be it in Laval, be it in Montreal. We've initiated with these $5,000 credits for people to buy electric cars. So we're being transparent, and we've initiated with a plan to start planting trees. So we're being proactive, and I think what the population is looking for is assurance. There's assurance that we're taking action, and that we're taking this matter into our hands, and to find a solution that is going to be concrete, a solution that is also going to be functioning, because we can have a solution and it's only going to be functioning in 20, 30, 40, 50 years. It's not any better. So we need concrete, fast measures.
Are they questioning at all the purchase of the pipeline?
When it comes to the pipeline, they're a bit confused. But when I explain to them that, how are we going to progress in fighting climate change? With what money?
Mm-hmm.
And I say to them, what if we cut your pension? What if your pension all of a sudden gets stopped because we need the money that we're giving to you in order to fight climate change? Like, look at it this way.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to cut your pension. We don't want to affect your pension, but we have to take the climate change into our hands. So how are we going to do it? Well, the government has followed the Norwegian example, where by creating this pipeline, by having this pipeline bring out funds, because we're going to be transporting oil, the funds that are coming out of the pipeline are going to be automatically invested into fighting climate change. So that every dollar that's invested in a pipeline, we get $15 that is injected into the environment fight. So they start to understand it that way, and I think they're content. Yes, we admit pipelines do pollute, mm-hmm. but what solution do we have, and where do we go get the funds to fight climate change?
It's also about getting our resources to market, right? Which there's not a million ways to do so. You obviously saw the debate that happened this week. There were a few hot points during that debate, hot topics. One of them was Bill 21, which seemed to, for which most of the leaders took their gloves off. And I've mentioned this with a lot of the other candidates that have been on the podcast. It seems as though the campaign started and everybody was a little bit touchy. Let's not touch that. How do we address it? It's a provincial government. They were elected under that platform to bring to pass this bill. They passed it, and then suddenly Justin Trudeau seems to be leaving the door wide open. He's the only one from the leaders that seems to actively want to contest it. At least that's what he's suggesting. We don't know. I mean, the campaign, there's still roughly 2 weeks left. I don't know if he's going to come out adamantly against it, but for now the door is open. You have a lot of young families. There's a lot of new immigrants coming and living in your area here in Laval. Is this something that keeps coming up?
Yes, Bill 21 does resonate in my writing. People have something to say about it, that it's positive or that it's negative, because nobody is indifferent to it. I think it's important to respect the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, but it is also too early to come out and conclude what will be the outcome. I'd rather wait for the courts to come out and decide. Mm-hmm. And we know very well that Canada, that our Liberal government has always been one to fight against injustice when it comes to rights and freedoms. Mm-hmm. We can't choose today which rights, which freedoms are good today and which rights or freedoms are not good tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So obviously, for example, when it came to the language rights, the French language in Ontario, what did the federal government do?
Yeah.
The federal Liberal government. We got up, we stood up, and we went We fought for it. And look what happened in Ontario. Now we're going to have a French university, a total 100% French university is going to be built. The Ford provincial government, what did they do with all the French services? They cut them. They cut all the French services. And that's what the Conservative government is going to do. If they get into power, they're going to be cutting services. They're going to be cutting especially the French services, because you need money to be invested in this in order for our communities to have services being bilingual. So I think when it comes to Bill 21, we'll have to wait to see what the provincial courts have to say. And from there, I think our government is going to react in the right positive way, because we, in our hearts and in our minds, we're always going to protect the rights and freedoms of all Canadians.
Let's wrap it up. I know that you have a very busy day. I was looking at your writing, just the weird way that our brains are wired, and I noticed that it's a very volatile writing in terms of its partisanship and its support. This is a writing that has been in the hands of pretty much every major party. The Liberals had it. They went to the Conservatives with a Mulroney wave in Quebec. Then for a long time, it was considered a stronghold for the Bloc Québécois. That went away with the wave of the NDP, and then you came in with the Liberal wave and took it away. Are you at all concerned that there seems to be like this pocket of 20 to 25% of your vote that just keeps swinging according to the trend? And these elections started, and nobody really was expecting the Bloc Québécois to do anything, but it's impressive to see how Yves-François Blanchet has really brought the party back to life, to the point where they're nearing 30% in Quebec. Is that at all worrying? How are you strategizing?
Well, I'm not too concerned, because like I said, I've been on the ground for the last 10 years. In the previous election, the 2011 election, it was really an orange wave. The groundwork was not done by the NDP for it to continue into a second mandate and become we become opposition or become government. The Liberal Party has always been grounded, has always been a strong national party, and I think that made the big difference. So 2015, we saw that Canadians invested in us. We've delivered. Canadian experts have said that we have delivered on most of our promises, up to 92%. It's never been so high for any other government to deliver on its promises.
It did come at a cost, though, right? 70 billion.
Yes, it did come at a cost, but we have to also admit that in the last 10 years under the Conservative government, we lost a lot of ground. We lost a lot of services. Infrastructures were just abandoned. Everything was just forgotten. So just like any business, when a business wants to expand, when a business wants to automize itself, when a business wants to go international, it has to invest, and thus therefore has to create somewhat of a deficit in order to take that jump. This is what Canada is doing. Yes, we are in a deficit, but look, we've created over 1 million jobs. Poverty for kids is at its lowest. We've helped so many families with the Canada allowance. This is really uplifted quite a bit. When I knock on the doors and I hear families, because of that family allowance, it's permitted my child to attend certain sports, certain activities. It's helped us have more money and more food on the table. It's helped us to invest into a small home. It's helped us into buy a car. It's helped us into buying a television. I've heard it from all different families with all different conclusions of what they were able to acquire or achieve because of that lump sum that is not imposed. So it makes a big difference. I think investing in Canadians, we can't go wrong, because in return, Canadians are going to invest back into the government. And all this creation of jobs, what is that doing? It's going to create more people paying into the system. So there's going to be a comeback. Obviously, yes, it may seem at first to be very, very large sums of funds that have to be injected, but there's going to be a return, and I think that's what we have to look at, that there's going to be prosperity that's going to be flourishing sooner or later.
Let's close it up. Any last messages you want to send out to the people in your writing, or anyone else listening or watching?
Well, I can only say to my constituents, since I was elected, I stood up for my writing, for Alfred-Pellan, for my constituents, for the businesses, for the organizations, and I will continue to do so. I keep choosing forward because it is the only direction that we can go towards. We don't want to go back and go to austerity. We want to continue on this prosperity road. And don't forget to go out to vote. It's very important. It's a vote for you, but more importantly, it's a vote for the future generations, for our kids. You know, when we are so concerned with the environment, then it's a priority, it's a must that we should go out and cast our vote, because this is what's going to make the big difference for Canadians. So I thank you all for listening to George and I. It was a pleasure, and thank you, George, for this invitation. It was fun to just have this relaxing drive in my riding and seeing my volunteers and seeing some constituents that are cleaning their grasses.
We got proof that they're actually doing their work.
Yes,
we saw them in action.
We saw them in action, and I was able to say hello to some of them. So it gave me the opportunity to have a relaxing ride, and I'll be back on track with doors and phones and etc. Because I love doing this work. I love doing this door to door and meeting the people and hearing out the people, and you know, it's being very present.
I appreciate your time, man. Good luck with everything. I'll be following very closely.
Thank you very much, George. Thank you.